So welcome everyone again to our third episode of JS News. And oh, nice. Okay, so we have a good audio. Amazing. Yeah. So this time we're here. We're trying to set up our makeshift studio, but the setup is just terrible. We're using a lot of laptops for camera and audio. So um, if anything goes wrong, just post in the messages and we will try to fix it. So what are we going to talk today about?
Today we're going to talk about three big topics: hydrogen, Hasura, and React Router version 6 update.
Okay, nice. So these are the news that have happened since the last GS News episode. It's not a lot, it's nothing very major, but I think there will be some very interesting topics. Is that right?
Yeah, of course. Especially hydrogen.
Yeah, so I think we can just start and go straight into it. One second. And yes, so what is hydrogen? Karolis.
Basically, Shopify decided to move into the single application world and they made their own React framework. What this framework does is it basically allows you to use GraphQL and components and hooks that were built by Shopify developers in your React project. So you can, using that framework, you can actually easily build and fast Shopify applications. So that's the basic gist of it. The main idea of it is that by using those single components and everything else, you would be able to set up any e-commerce store in like a few days by using the Shopify TMS. But at the end of the day, I checked out the documentation and it seems like there is quite of a learning curve to actually go through the entire documentation and learn the actual application.
I guess so.
So my wonder is, will this actually catch on to developers that want to build websites like that? Or will we just continue using for the basic Shopify API for integrations and just making our own components?
Yeah, so that's very interesting. So far, this is just a developer preview, meaning that you cannot actually use that in production. But their approach is very interesting because they decided to create their own React framework. And as you dive deeper into what features Hydrogen actually supports, we see a lot of familiar things. So we have TypeScript, Tailwind CSS. The building is powered by Vite. We also have a lot of server-side rendering. We have, I think, React server components. And a lot of these things are very, very similar to what we have in Next.js.
Yeah, it's very similar to Next.js. That's why I'm thinking, like, if this isn't just reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, I thought about that too. And the way they're doing a lot of these things is basically just, I'm not saying copying Next.js, but they're taking the existing technologies that we already use and they're putting them on top of their own features.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm not sure if you saw the component list. If you go to components here, like in the documentation, you'll see like the ease of it. The naming, I think it's something that they could work on since they have a component called image, which renders the storefront API image, which makes like the naming of the component makes no sense to me because it seems like just a general image component.
Okay, and it just generates like a logo, like a banner, something.
Yeah, exactly. It uses the URL. It uses that component. Basically, what it does is takes your API object and uses server-side rendering to parse that entire object and then render a component. So basically, it's a Next.js way of doing things. I just think they could have put in more time in naming the actual component so it's clear what you display instead of naming it external video or image. So because, for example, if you're building your own project, and you need something more. You need Shopify integration, but on top of that, you need some more things. So I would say if you need, for example, an external video component, you probably won't be using a completely Shopify's external video component for all your videos. If you
Yeah,
need to show a
that's-
different video,
that's
you'll
probably
make
true.
your own external video component. That's why I'm thinking these components might need some sort of a prefix even maybe, since this isn't a UI library like Material UI where it doesn't matter what you use in the naming. So yeah, I think that's one of the confusing things that I found in this framework. Another thing is, if we move on to the good things, for example, if you scroll down a bit, you have these custom hooks and global components.
Oh, nice. And they're using React Query.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
that's
nice.
the good thing. That means the refetch is completely supported out of the box. That means that we can easily catch the data and revalidate it if we need to. We have easy error handling from it as well. So they made this step quite easy, and I'm like happy about it. And another good thing that they did, they actually have content providers already done. So for example, if you write their hook, you're able to pull out a content provider from that hook and wrap your content in it. But
Nice.
so that's the good part. But if we move on to using their components, like the data fetching part is very nice. It's easy to use, it's simple, it's quite fun to use actually. But the part where you actually like scroll down a little to show the product, this is and this is the part where, for example, I would use my own components since I have the data, I have the query, and usually when you get the design, the default components don't work like at all. Usually you need to restyle them. Even Material UI, how many changes do we have to do to match the styling?
Yeah, a lot.
Quite a bit.
So I guess it works if you're using the default Tailwind CSS styling with like their own provided solutions. But if you're using their styling, then why are you building the React front store at the first place? It's very easy to actually use Shopify with their like default theming and without writing a separate SPA for that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is what they were going for, that you could use React for it, maybe to increase some performance, maybe to like just show off that React is possible with Shopify now. But the data part is nice. The data fetching part, the part that we actually would use and need, like it's good. I like that part.
I wonder if you can actually export that and just use the hooks without using their framework.
That's what I've been thinking. I didn't see it in the documentation yet, but I'm thinking that if we could export those hooks and have just a Shopify package with those data fetching hooks without the entire component tree and everything else, I think it would be even better than using their default components. I think these default components should only stand as placeholders. If you're, for example, you need to test out an API real fast, or you need or you have a client that needs a project done in like a week, then you use the default components, just throw them in there, use the data, and it's gonna be just fine. But then but this is only if the client wants specifically React.
Yeah.
Other than that, just use the default Shopify theming. It works just as well.
Yeah, because if we could actually use those hooks separately, then I think it would make more sense to actually use something like Next.js that all people are familiar with.
Exactly.
And not just limit yourself to a framework that's only for e-commerce apps. Because you can use Next for basically anything, and Hydrogen is going to be tailored for e-commerce.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think as well.
But we'll see, actually.
I think it's a good way to have a tool for them.
But
hooks are the main part, and I think it should be as a separate thing.
Yeah.
So you can have a flexibility to have another tools.
Yeah, exactly. And
For example, Remix too. You can use Remix with
Remix.
As always, you can use Remix for it.
next week.
Next week.
Next week. Okay, so talking about Remix, we're not going to talk about Remix anymore. I see our video is frozen. Is it?
Let me check.
No.
No, it's good.
I think it's okay.
Yeah.
So speaking about remix, we have another one. I think. Okay. So we have a new article on the remix page, but it really is not a remix itself. It's React Router v6. So what is that? Timas?
I think we all use the React router. So React router team released recently sixth version of it. So yeah, there's some new features and some not very new features, but just some improvements. Switch component was renamed to routes, and you can nest routes without using the switch or that new routes component. I will show you some example. Yeah, so like here we have a route and we have some children routes. And one other nice thing, there's a new component outlet.
Oh, okay, I heard about it.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, maybe click that.
Yeah, I think we have an example also.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I lost it. I think there's a good example about outlets in the actual
Yeah.
React router documentation.
I really like that approach.
And by the way, the new documentation is really good.
Yeah.
Do you remember the old React
I
router
remember
documentation?
the old documentation. I actually never used the old React Router documentation.
It looked like something from 2005.
Like I used it once, I think, and then I never went to that website again because like
Yeah.
TypeScript.
Yeah.
Okay, so I still can't find the outlet. Okay, now
Yeah.
here it is. So what is it?
So we have some parent route, for example, invoices, and then we have some children routes. Some single invoice or sent invoices list, and in that children component, not children, in the parent component, you can render children components using outlet.
You don't really need actual routes inside of your component.
Yes.
You can specify like the parts in the layout that will get replaced by the router.
Yes. So that's amazing, and it looks a lot cleaner that way.
Cool. It reminds me a little bit about how Angular used to do routing in the old days. I think there used to be like those like switchable outlets, and then you could configure the router.
There was ng template thing, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Something
yeah,
like that.
Yeah. that was-
Interesting.
And yeah, I think we lost that.
Oh yeah, let's just go back.
Yeah, but actually, like the best thing regarding React Router v6
Mm-hmm.
is how we do Google Analytics routing now.
Mm-hmm.
How did you used to do that type of tracking? Like if you needed to track every single page of Google Analytics.
Well, basically you can use location and then react to the changes.
Exactly. Now you'll only just need to add one hook.
Which one?
Use analytics tracking, and that's it.
Oh wow, are they actually exporting that?
Yeah, I think so. But
Well, I think you can create something like that, but
yeah,
it's something that you can actually make yourself, but they actually made it more accessible.
oh yeah, I see.
And since it's more accessible, since it's better to use now, the tracking is much easier. Since usually what people do in React projects, which I think is the bad approach to this, they just add the default Google Analytics tag, like the script tag in the index file, and that's it. They leave that there, and like in the long run, the Google Analytics will only show like the general information regarding the website because we don't have the roots. So the client won't have any data of where the user hangs out much.
Yeah,
and
well,
what
you
happens.
can like track the page changes, but it's very limited.
Yeah.
You don't support like, the custom routing.
Exactly. And I think like this is something that people should take a look at. Well, So when they receive, for example, in their projects a Google Analytics task or any other analytics task, just estimate it a few hours more and add the tracking as expected, so that when your manager, or if you're the manager, the client is very happy to hear that the analytics works like in the best way possible.
That's workplace advice from Karolis.
Workplace advice from Karolis.
Yeah. So another thing that they're talking about is that they've actually rewritten the whole React router from ground up using only hooks. And well, they actually added a lot of hooks in version 5.1, I think.
Yeah,
And I've already gotten used to using them. But apparently right now we also have some new things.
And their bundle size is reduced by 70%.
Yes,
That's real nice.
that's
good.
too. That's too. Let me see if I can just find the hooks here. So yeah,
They renamed use history, not renamed reward.
yeah. One thing that I used to do is if you want to programmatically change the route, you use the hook, use history, export the push attribute from it, and then you use that push to actually push to history. Now they actually have a hook for that. It's called use navigate, and I think it works better. I'm not sure why, but it is a purposely made hook exactly for that purpose. And it does not seem like you're using history for some reason. It's more readable.
Yeah, I agree with this. Navigate, I think, was a long time coming. Like at the beginning, I remember when I started working with React Router in general, and I think hooks came out like just recently by then, and I kept trying to use Navigate because in Stack Overflow, people for some reason typed in, instead of history.push, typed in Navigate. And then after a while, I realized that what people are actually doing is they're making utility functions that do history.push.
Wrapping around that.
Yeah, and they just export the navigate function. So basically, that React Router just integrated it inside their entire package is a very good thing.
Nice.
It's less confusing now.
So that, a lot of hooks, and this new Shiny documentation.
Did you check what does use outlet hook?
Actually, I don't know.
It's very strange.
So basically, it's an internal hook, but
Oh,
you
okay.
can use it to hack something if you want to hack around something.
It's a hack hook.
Yeah, but I think in general, it just feels more correct to use React Router right now because the documentation looks really good. We have a lot of fresh hooks, and it should be working much better. I don't know why, but I just feel it.
No, it will work better. If they reduce the bundle size, that means they increase the performance as well, since that means they removed a lot of redundant functions and things in their app.
Nice.
So I'm like looking forward to trying how it works and seeing all the ways we can hack around it now.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So what do we have next on our agenda?
We have a Hasura.
Hasura. Okay. So you talked about this a little bit in the previous stream. All right.
Yeah, I mentioned it about since we talked about Graph CMS. It's a little similar tool, but not that similar because it's not a CMS. It's like basically creates GraphQL server queries, mutations, subscriptions from your database schema. So yeah. So for example, let's go to the data. It will open our database. Yeah, database is hosted at Heroku. You can just add, config whatever you want. And I think they will add other databases too soon. So yeah, so we have a table with ID, title, URL. We have some data. We can modify the columns or add new column. You need to select type. It's basically like creating in SQL. And yeah, if you want, for example, compute some fields, you need to create a function Yeah, so you basically need to write SQL statement for
Okay.
creating function.
That's a bit overcomplicated. Can you just skip that?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's just if you need to create some field to
For something
calculate
else.
something. Yeah,
Okay, I see.
or you can add some actions or events, and you can add remote schema to some your remote API, which you can code and add those some of the logic there. If there is some more business logic, you can just make it some maybe lambda function or something like that.
Okay.
Uh, you can create views too from several fields.
So it
So
seems
yeah,
it seems a little bit more technical than Graph CMS.
yeah, it is, and it's very configurable. You can add permissions, insert, select, update, delete permissions, add relationships.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's monitoring too. What I like about it is that you can analyze, you can check what SQL query is going to database when you are making the request.
Ah, so it's easy to debug then.
So, for example, I write episode title, then podcast hosts, name. So we have two lists, and yeah, we can check analyze.
Oh.
It's a little bit complicated query. It's converting to JSON in database,
Okay.
but we can see that it only requested title. The episode has ID, created that, updated more fields, but we asked for title, and it just selects only title from database.
Okay, I see. So it's already optimized.
Yeah, that's a good part of Hasura.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah, but what I really don't like is, for example, I create some functions, and if you want to delete them, you need to write a SQL query. You can't delete it from UI. You
Okay.
can delete table from UI, you can delete view from UI, but you can't delete functions. But at least now you can see them in UI what functions exist. I tried this tool.
It's already too much for me.
Yeah, I tried this tool 2 years ago,
Uh-huh.
and I wrote some functions to test. I played around, and you couldn't even see what functions exist in your database. So
Okay.
yeah, you couldn't know what to delete.
Okay, so it's a bit of a mess then.
Yeah, it is a little bit. And for example, we have some. There's many to many relationship. We have additional tables and views to generate more better queries for front end. But there's no option to hide root queries. For example, there's I rename it with X, so it shouldn't be used by front end, so it goes down to bottom. So
Okay.
at least docs are more readable. But
Okay.
basically, yeah, you can't hide them. You can add some permissions, but if episodes and hosts uses type from this view, then you can't hide the no, you can't remove permission for user, for example.
Okay.
So he needs to see that, and you can't hide root queries or root mutations. So that's why I don't like it very much.
Okay,
But
so in this case, Graph CMS is winning actually because it's
yeah,
much easier to use.
yeah,
But there is one thing that I like about Hasura, and it is that it actually allows you to host it on your own premises.
yeah,
So that was very surprising for me as when I saw this. There is actually an open source, I think, Docker container that you can use to actually host it on your own server, and you are not tied to their cloud ecosystem.
Yes.
So that is a big bonus of Hasura, because GraphCMS locks you inside of their servers, and you can, well, theoretically scale it up. But I have not tried it, and it only has a small subset of features. So I don't know.
GraphCMS is for different purpose than Hasura, and GraphCMS is for like content systems.
Yeah, for content
not
systems.
very difficult and complex.
Mhm.
This tool is for complex applications instead of backend. You don't need to write backend. You just use this tool.
Yeah, but you also do need to know backend to use
Yeah,
this.
you-
Like,
you
if, for example, I didn't know how
You need
SSQ
to understand databases, but you don't need to write code, or not a lot of it.
Mhm.
If you have some custom actions, you may write some code, but yeah, you can create it from
So it's
table.
it's targeted to database administrators that do not know how to code their backends.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And what
That's
I
the thing.
didn't like it, after 2 years, that not much changed.
That's
I
true.
think there are room to improve it, and 2 years passed, and there's a lot of still same problems.
Okay.
And I occurred some errors, just random errors. I tried to go to the table, there's error, I refresh, now it's okay. And previously it wasn't like that. So yeah,
Okay.
something's not right. Yeah.
Okay, so we're not gonna use this one, but maybe someone will.
Yeah, maybe someone
Yeah.
will use it. I'm just staying on GraphCMS side
Yeah.
on this.
Me too.
It has relations, it has fields, it's a content application. You just can't do actions or Lambda functions there.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so next week another GraphQL CMS that is not gonna beat GraphCMS.
Yeah, that we're not gonna use.
Yeah. Okay, one thing that I wanted to show really quick is this new beta version of React Docs. So it's not really ready for public yet, but I saw on Twitter, I think Dan Abramov, he shared this one. So Facebook team is working on the new React Docs, and I really, really like this one because it's really interactive. Here, let me show you. So if you go to Learn React tutorial, you can see that all of the topics are outlined, and all of them include this interactive code editor.
Finally.
Yes, so you theoretically, if you want to learn React, you don't need to fire up your own project. You can just play around with it, and it's like fully real-time interactive, and it really, really helps to understand how React works. Look, they even see that installation right here is not it's optional. You don't really need it to learn React. And all of these topics, well, in my opinion, they're really nicely laid out. You first learn about describing the UI. So this is the overview, and then you can just dig deeper into it. So I think that for new developers, this is going to be just golden. I don't even know any other tutorial or I don't know a course on any kind of website that explains React better than this one. So this is really, really cool. It's not yet complete. We don't have more advanced topics here.
Yeah.
But once it comes out, it's going to be super, super easy to learn React from scratch.
Yeah, it finally will be. Well, there are React courses, I mean, with the same one. Like, there's Code Academy in which you're actually given like a task with an explanation as well as an interactive code editor, and you have to submit it in order to get it confirmed and move on to the next. So I guess there are courses like that where you just don't watch videos but they're actually interactive, but most of them are paid. Like, I haven't seen a free one yet that has that type of interactivity. So having this for a complete beginner that's just trying to figure out React is gonna be an amazing thing, and I think will actually lead to more developers trying to understand React and seeing how it works.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure how long ago did you go to the current React documentation?
Well, actually, not that long ago, I wanted to see how something from custom hooks worked.
Yeah.
But well, the current React documentation is really good to understand the APIs
Yeah, exactly.
and more difficult things.
By current React documentation, I meant the getting started page and then the
Oh,
chapters
no.
like this.
No, the getting started has always eluded me. Well, it's good, but you need to like spend more time to play around with it just on your own.
Yeah, of course. That's why that's what I'm saying. Like most developers that even if they already know JavaScript, if you go to the current React documentation without watching a crash course, without knowing what React is, just like I know JavaScript, I can do React now, and you go in there, it gets quite like overwhelming instantly because like the first few pages you go to as a beginner developer, you're like, no, this is too hard, and then you watch one like crash course on YouTube, like that takes like an hour or two,
Yeah.
and now you know React, and that's it. So
Yeah.
I think this approach is sort of like that crash course approach, which I like a lot more than the current one.
Yeah, and it looks good. It actually looks better.
I was going to say I actually like the font of the new documentation. It's
wait.
very easy on the eyes.
I think very nice page about. Okay, so about adding interactivity about states. So there's this one page which looks really, really good. Let me just see. Oh, okay. So I think it's in the API. Yeah. So see, how they describe the APIs. Use states, for example, and then they actually highlight the parts of the code which are doing this stuff, and they color code them, and they explain every step. You see, I don't know. It
Nice.
looks
That's really amazing.
it looks so
Nice.
satisfying to me. So I think they should
It's
just
more readable and understandable. Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
You just look at this visual and you immediately understand
Yeah,
what's
you can
what's
just
going on.
read 3 steps this
Yeah.
and look at the code.
So I will definitely be passing that to some junior developers or people who just want to learn something.
Yeah, or
Actually, actually, we should take a look at this since we work on documentations from time to time.
Yeah, well,
We actually need to take some notes instead of writing readme.mds.
yeah, but that's gonna be hard to beat. I mean, it looks so good.
That's why I'm saying let's not beat it. Let's just take notes and do the same thing.
Okay, we'll make sure to do that. Okay, what else? So there was Chrome Dev Summit. That's it. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah,
it just happened.
It's an upcoming event. I think
No, I think it already happened.
it happened already. Did I miss Chrome Dev Summit?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think we all missed, and I really wanted to talk about it, but I just didn't get around to viewing the actual videos.
Yeah, me neither yet. We didn't have the time yet.
So we will drop the link, and
Yeah.
you can all just watch the video together with us later.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, and the last one. So there's this interesting thing that I think Karolis found, right?
Yeah. Well, we all know like that at the end of our podcast, we usually check out one
A is a variable
like
with a
sad
process.
JavaScript thing that shouldn't work this way, but it now does. And you have this bug now that you can't even solve. So I found that Visual Studio Code actually did a video on this, and because I tried to think about how to explain it, but then I found this video and I'm like, okay, this works. This is how you explain it. How many times did you think about Unicode characters while developing something?
Not a single one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I thought about it once that it might be possible, but I'm like, what are the odds? And then I thought if you're developing a global application with like different types of characters and usernames and things that you need for authentication, that means you need to keep in mind that Unicode is a thing and that different symbols typed in a different way will show up different in the code. So yeah, this is what this video shows. Basically, as you can see, A and B is Jose.
Yeah, it's the same.
It should be the same, right?
No, it's not.
Why is it not the same? It's because the letter E with the dash at the top is actually typed differently, and it has one additional character.
So that's how Unicode combines letters. You either have one symbol for it,
Or
or you have the accent that then it's
Exactly.
combined in the font.
Exactly. So that's what we need to do. Like, we thought about use cases for this yesterday, right? Like where we could integrate this. And I think the main use case for this is actually thinking about it for usernames. So
Probably.
one way to avoid this is to just only allow Latin characters, and that's it. Just ignore all the other characters and throw errors and non-validation for them. But another thing we could do is actually use a normalize function. JavaScript has a string normalize function which deals with these types of Unicode things. And for usernames, for example, we can allow a user to type in anything they want for a username. If they want like 100-letter username, they can do that. It's fine. But if we normalize it and save it into the database, and then normalize it on each API call when we're actually authenticating the user, that should avoid all the possible conflicts with Unicode, and it should always stay the same.
But actually, it's not a problem with JavaScript.
No.
All of the languages are suffering from this. So I actually thought about, I mean, it's such an obvious issue. It should be solved automatically. And I found one article that says like Chrome and WebKit browsers normalize the strings automatically when you put into an input. I tried that myself. It didn't work.
They don't.
Yeah, they don't. Then I thought, okay, so we have like GraphQL. It heavily pre-processes data.
Yeah.
But I could not find any article that GraphQL would automatically do that.
Yeah, me neither.
Maybe when you save it to the database, you can like have some functions, some middleware that pre-processes it.
Yeah, I guess so. But even then, if we have a middleware into the database, and we normalize, but the user still types it in the same way, that means the user can't log in anymore. Why?
Yeah.
Because we don't parse it like before. That's why the parsing should happen on the form field instead of either on the form field while validation is happening. So we check for non-Latin characters and just normalize them, or on the backend side on every API request. Whichever way you do it is depends on where you prefer doing the validation and the normalizing of strings. Sometimes backend just takes it up and already does it with the API calls and the data saving. Sometimes backend leaves that out, and it's up to us to do all those things.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a very rare occasion that this is gonna pose an issue.
The problem can be in some search queries where you can search user article or something like that.
Definitely.
That's also
Because
true.
username you can solve with like I think a lot of websites do it like you have a username with only Latin characters and you have a display name. So you can have a username whatever you want, but you log in with your Latin characters.
Yeah, but if you have a search through the users and you're working with
then you will need the thing.
Yeah, so I guess we're not saying normalize every string, but if you see that something's not working, just keep in mind that that might be Unicode playing tricks with you.
But for search, I think there are some tools for
There should be,
searching,
but still,
and I think they might normalize that.
Yeah, but if you're doing that on the front end,
we need to check it.
Yeah, and also password validation. For example, some password validations do not allow using your own name inside of the password.
Yeah, of course.
And that's always done on the front end to validate that form.
Yes, it is.
So yeah, just keep that in mind that this might play some tricks.
Yeah, like this is one of those issues where you've spent an entire day looking for an issue in your code, but there is no issue.
Yeah,
and it's just how the browser works.
Yeah.
So keep it in mind, and then next time you go into an issue where the user can't log in because of his username, ask for his username first. Just check if it's only Latin letters and it's your code, or you're gonna save a full day of work and just enjoy it, and you'll be able to complete anything else you want.
That's right. So thanks, Karolis, for finding that.
Thank you.
I'm sure I'll keep that in mind. Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, I guess that's it. We wanted to fit in the half an hour, but you see, we're just chatting around. So
Yeah, like we usually do.
I guess our format is gonna be 1 hour of random speaking.
I guess so.
Yeah. So thanks everyone for listening. We will be uploading this to YouTube as always. We will be posting all of the links. Love this. I'm just gonna display it. Okay. Thanks everyone for listening and see you soon. Hopefully in 2 weeks
Hopefully in 2 weeks this time.
with the next episode.
See you, everyone.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.